I will be creating the most iconic scene in Blender.
But there's going to be a time limit.
I'll be creating one animation in 100 hours and one animation in 1 hour.
So we're going to start now.
I went to Sketch5 straight away to get my 2 models of Simba and Rafiki. Once I was there, I opened it up and I searched young Simba specifically to get the young version. And I found there were lots of models, but I liked this one the best. Then I went on to Rafiki. And when I searched Rafiki, there were lots of models. But I wanted to find the T-pose model because there was the best one over there, which was not T-pose. I chose this model for Rafiki. I can see that the tail is kind of bent, but I'll fix that later. But I'll leave all the links in the description for my 2 models. So let's get straight into it. I opened up Blender and I said my final words to my friend and I got rid of him. Then I went to File, Import, and then my file, which was an FBX file, to import my 2 models. As soon as I imported these 2 models, I noticed a big problem. These 2 models were not rigged. I had to do it myself. So as I saw the time was ticking, I was like, I have to do it super fast. So I went straight to work. The rig looked good for Simba, so now let's move on to Rafiki. Rafiki's model was looking good. And I noticed that I took so much time rigging these 2 characters. It took me 30 minutes, just more than 30 minutes. And now notice I have even created the environment. So I went onto Google to search the reference image for my environment from The Lion King. And I got something like this. So I knew I had to start fast. I only had around 20 minutes left. So I started cooking in Blender. So I did it super quick. I added in a plane, scaled it up. And then I added in a cube. Then I scaled it on the x-axis and also scaled it on the y, and I messed around with the proportion because I couldn't get the right things. I just had to make it a bit rough, make it the best because I only had around 20 minutes left and I had to render it as well. So this is what it kind of looks like. With only 2 minutes left, I knew I couldn't animate a whole animation. So I knew I had to only pick one frame that I could make it the best as possible. So I got the most iconic position when Rafiki is holding up Simba. And then I quickly messed around with the posing. And then I clicked that render button. I knew with only 2 minutes left, I couldn't do much. And this is what it looked like. There is a lot we can improve on. I didn't even have time to add the materials or even a background for the render. But it is what it is. Comment down below what you think I should improve on.
Once you do 100 hours, let's see how much better we can actually do.
I went into Unreal Engine Marketplace to get some foliage, some grass, everything, some trees as well for the environment and some other websites like this one. I imported all the assets to Blender and my file size was getting big. Shout out to G-Scatter for the amazing add-on. I use this to scatter all of my foliage to a plane, and they have so many more features to check out. But as you can see, my FPS for my scene was super low, and look at how many triangles I have in the scene. Nearly 500,000 triangles and faces in my scene. For the rock, I had an amazing idea. I added a displacement modifier, and then I added in a texture to it. Now this is what it currently looks like, but then I messed around with setting the scale and the density and all of those settings, and then I got something looking like this. Then I went into edit mode and I scaled it up or down, but later on I will change these settings even more to make it even better. Now it's time to add the materials to our rock. I'll leave all the links in the description for the textures. This is what it currently looks like. We can make it even better. I'm going to add some extra nodes to our materials so we can add that extra effect. So I'm going to add in our RGB node and some other ones. You can have a look right now. That RGB curve node has all the power. So when I move it up, it's going to change it to a light color. But when I move it down, it's going to be a dark color. I'm going to make an S curve to add that effect. And this is what it looks like. So now I have so much time. So then I was taking my sweet time to model the environment. So I added a cube for that little platform that Simba and the Rafiki are gonna walk on. And just like that, we have modeled the platform, and it looks amazing, better than that big rock. Look at that. I modeled the rock underneath, added in the displacement modifier, and changed the properties of the modifier. And just like that, we have modeled the main part of the environment. Now we're gonna add some small rocks next to them. I added in the rocks, and this is what it looks like. It looks pretty good. So my viewport display speed was quite slow, but it was alright for now. I did a quick test run to see what it looks like, and this is what it currently looks like. I need to add in the texture for the plane, the soil, and then there's barely any lighting in our scene, so I have to add in probably like a HDRI and some point and directional lights to make it even better. Then I used the free version of Blender Kit to get some tree assets, as well as those that I downloaded at the start of the 100 hours and that I got from the marketplace of the Unreal Engine. I'll leave all the links in the description. Go check it out, as they are free as well, so you can use them in your project. Now this is what I'm talking about. This is the environment I created. As we can see, the viewport speed is quite slow, but we're gonna manage that by hiding all of the non-necessary things right now. So I'm gonna hide the trees. We spent over 32 hours on the environment. Now let's focus on the main characters of our animation. Now I took advantage of the rig that I created in the 1 hour one. As we can see, I just kind of like fixed some stuff, looked at which things I should do, and I quickly like focused on the weight painting as well of the rig. But for Simba, everything looked alright except from the hair on his face. It wasn't moving for the rig, but I fixed that. I also noticed one other problem, that the face bone wasn't moving the two mouth bones that I put. So what I did, I quickly selected them both, and then I parented to them and kept the offset. And then look at that, we fixed the issue and they're moving now. You probably remember the bent tail of Rafiki, so now it's the time to fix it. So I got rid of all the bones and I deleted all the faces that were part of that bent bone. Now as we can see, the model, I kept on deleting all the faces, and then I filled in that face at the end, and everything was looking good. I imported the two models and I noticed that the environment was quite small, so I scaled them up and made them large. But then I noticed it was too big and I scaled it back just a tiny little bit, and everything was now to scale. Now that's why we should always add in a reference model so we can make the environment better. But it was fixed, and I also checked around with the camera if the camera was the right size as well. But everything was now looking good. I set up my camera for my first scene, and I also looked at the reference video of the iconic scene. With just under 50 hours left, now it's time to animate the two models, which is the best part about Blender. The first daunting process was I was actually just fixing the first pose of Rafiki. It took so much time to just get his feet off the ground, and then I quickly rotated him, fixed the feet, and then also the arms. But I'm gonna add Simba at the end when I animated his walk cycle. This is just me struggling to make the walk cycle. You can have a look at this clip. As you can see, it was a lot of trial and error to get the right movement of the feet. I added in the 3 main keyframes for the walk cycle, and then it was time to add the keyframes in between. I'm not going to give everything away, but this is what roughly my second shot is going to look like. But remember, he is going to be holding little Simba with him. I'm going to add him at the end. But then I had to refine the animation as well. So the walk cycle, there were lots of keyframes I was adding. I positioned Simba on Rafiki's hand, and I parented him to Rafiki's hand for the first shot, and then I animated his neck as well. So he's going to be moving around, and I also animated his blink cycle with it. We have so much time left, over 12 hours left, and I just did my final touches. I placed the camera, added in the texture, everything was done. I looked at everything to see if everything was looking good, and it was time for us to render our animation.
Two hours later.
I don't understand what is happening. Look, I'm stuck at frame 42 and it's taking me around 90 seconds each frame. And if it's here, it says synchronizing the object mesh 1. Now, I don't know, it's just stuck there for about 30 minutes. I don't know what's happening. And I have 500 frames in total. Like, what am I supposed to do? So as you can see, I'm trying to cross this. And when I do it, it's going to say that my Blender crashed. And when I close the program, it's going to close everything in the thing. So now, when I reopen it, so when I reopen my Blender file, I'm trying to look at what that mesh 1 is. And if I go over here to open up my scene, and when it opens, this mesh 1, as you can see, the mesh 1, that is Rafiki right there. And after like 10 frames, it's going to stay, it's not synchronizing it. I don't even know what I'm doing wrong. I did every single setting. I checked every single setting. I don't know what's going wrong. But I'm going to see how we're going to do it. We still have time. We have about like 2 hours to render this. So let's just see how we'd go.
I figured out that I'm going to have to use command line rendering. So I did that, and it is now done. And here are the results.